Good day, one and all. Today's YouTube video is probably the most anticipated video of all my YouTube career. I have had so many people ask me if I'm going to make a video of this, when I'm going to make a video of this, what's holding me up. Today's item really is a special one and people have been really excited to do it. I've been really excited to do it too. And I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to get to this point. Basically what happened was a few months ago I did start filming this video, and then I moved. And I moved to another location while I was halfway done, and I didn't want to have a video awkwardly filmed in two different locations, so I just ditched all the footage and now I'm starting over. Another thing is that because today's item is pretty special, I wanted to do this video in kind of a special manner. I wanted to try my hand at making sort of a pro-level video. I obviously don't have the pro-level equipment, but I was hoping to do it in at least a pro-level style and editing style and stuff like that. But it just got too aggravating and annoying to try and coordinate, and I've decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it in my usual video making style. Do as I always do, just convey all the information as coherently as I can and show everything and try and make it interesting. So we're going to do just that. Today I have a vintage computer to show you, and this is by far the most valuable of all my computers and definitely the coolest of all my computers and the most interesting. This is the IBM Model 5155 portable PC manufactured in 1984. Allow me to open it up here so you can get a better look at it. And there it is in all its glory. So in this video I'm going to give a little background and a little bit of history of this computer, as well as how I acquired this particular unit. I'm going to show you all around it, all the different features and quirks and everything else it has. And we will power it on and boot it up. And I'll run a couple of software programs on it, but this is not going to be a software demonstration video. The purpose of this video is going to be showing the hardware. I will make a second video, possibly, of a software demonstration, just running a bunch of different programs on this computer and showing how they run. But today's video is just going to be a demo of the software and a boot up, and I'll just quickly show you around with it running. So first of all, how did I acquire this computer? Well, this computer actually belonged to the university where I'm currently going to school. I found it a year and a half ago in the amateur radio station. When I got my membership for the amateur radio station, and one of the first times I was in there, I eventually noticed this thing standing on its end. And it was back too, so you couldn't see the IBM logo, and I had no idea what it was, and I paid it no mind. And then one day I was in the station and I saw it and I had no idea what it was, and I decided to lug it onto a table and open it up and see what the heck it was. And when I pulled it away from the wall that it was sitting up against and I saw that IBM logo, I immediately knew what it was, and I was unbelievably excited. And I opened it up and here it was, and I plugged it in and turned it on for possibly the first time in years, and it worked just fine, no issues whatsoever, which was amazing. In fact, if you haven't seen it, I have a video on this channel of the first time of when I discovered what it was and booted it up for the very first time, and you can watch that video and you can sense how excited I was in that video. So that was about a year and a half ago, and at that time I asked the manager of the amateur radio station if he knew about it. And he really didn't. He didn't realize that it had been there because he hadn't been managing the station for a very long time. And I said if it wasn't used for anything, if I could have it. And he had to find a few people, talk to a few people to see who was actually, the proprietor of this computer, who actually, had the most ownership of this computer. And he found that person, and they basically said, yeah, no problem. The only thing was, because this was legally a university asset, they couldn't just give it to me. They had to sell it to me. And so I bought it from the university for the princely sum of $5, which I think is a very good price. So all in all, it was only a couple of months between me discovering this computer and me being able to take it home. And I was just so overjoyed, because the thing is, I've known about this model of computer for many years, and it was always, one of my holy grail vintage computers. I think it's just the coolest thing ever. But I had come to accept the fact very quickly that I'd never own one, just because these aren't that common. They're actually pretty rare. They're not super rare, but they're way less common than, say, an ordinary IBM PC. In fact, this computer sold about a tenth of the number of units as the original IBM PC and the IBM PC XT sold. So by that metric, it is rather rare. And I just figured I'd never be able to own one. And lo and behold, I find this unit, and it's in mint condition. Well, it was in mint condition when I found it. It's suffered a couple of minor issues since then, which I'll get into in this video. And I was able to buy it for $5, which is just amazing. It's the vintage computer collector's dream. So I'm super happy to have this. I will keep it forever. And I'm really happy to get to show you it today. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of background of this computer, a little bit of history, how this computer came to be, and under what circumstances IBM decided to sell it. Well, here's the story. The story of this computer goes back to the original IBM PC, the model 5150, introduced in 1981. That was the first computer that all modern PCs that we know today are based on. What we know now is IBM compatible computers. It all started, of course, with the original IBM Model 5150 PC in 1981. That machine had an Intel 8088 CPU running at 4 megahertz and change. It had a base configuration of 16 kilobytes of RAM, and it could be upgraded to 64 kilobytes. And you could order it with, I believe, 1 or 2 5.25-inch floppy disk drives. And so this was the computer that started it all. And then in 1983, a couple of years later, IBM introduced an upgraded model called the PC XT. XT stood for Extended Technology. And basically the PC XT was a slightly better PC. It was based on the same CPU. It looked the same, it functioned the same. But the big difference was it had an upgraded motherboard, and the base memory was now 64 kilobytes, and it could be upgraded to 256 kilobytes. So you had quite a bit more memory, and also the PC XT had such upgrades as having a lot more expansion slots than the original PC had. And the PC XT was what really propelled the IBM and IBM compatible market. The PC XT was the first really popular machine. It sold way better than the original PC did, just because it was so much more useful. Oh, also, actually I'm missing perhaps the biggest thing about the PC XT. It came with an internal hard disk drive, a 10 megabyte hard drive, a Seagate ST412 MFM hard drive. And so that was a big upgrade at the time. So yeah, that's what really propelled IBM and the PC XT to just mass, just wild success. And that was in 1983. Now, this is where we get to the meat and potatoes of our story. Also in 1983, there was a small startup company in Texas, and they went by the name of Compaq Computer Corporation. And they were working on their first product, which would be the first 100% or near 100% IBM compatible PC, and it would be called the Compaq Portable. Indeed, Compaq's first product would be a portable computer. Now, portable microcomputers weren't a new thing. You had them going back to the 70s. Hewlett-Packard made a few, and I believe there were other companies that made some as well. And they were mostly marketed towards, your high-class businessmen. People who, worked really hard and worked a lot and did a lot of work on their computer, and so could benefit from having a computer that they could tote from place to place, rather than having to buy multiple computers, to have one at home and one at work or wherever, or to carry an entire desktop computer between home and work or what have you. Computers like the one you see here were marketed towards people who really did a lot of work on the computers, on a computer for the time, and could benefit from one that they could take wherever they had to go and work. And so Compaq decided to attack this market with their first computer, which would also be the first near 100% IBM compatible PC. Now, IBM was not pleased with Compaq at all at the time. First, IBM always thought that they would just own the market with their own machine. They didn't think they ever had to worry about other companies copying them and coming out with compatible computers, because IBM's BIOS was copyright. The actual hardware of the IBM PC is actually incredibly simple and very easy and cheap to copy. The IBM PC is made up mostly of off-the-shelf components, TTL logic chips and stuff like that. It's very easy to copy an IBM PC motherboard, and in fact, when you bought an IBM PC, IBM supplied, or at least I think they supplied, if they didn't supply it, then you could order them easily, schematics of the PC's motherboard. And so, copying the hardware was nothing, but if you wanted to make an IBM compatible PC, you had to also have the right BIOS. And IBM copyrighted their BIOS, so theoretically it would be impossible for any other company to make a compatible machine. Well, Compaq managed to do it, and how they managed to do it was they basically had what's called a clean room design. And what that means is Compaq basically took an IBM PC and, without looking at the BIOS code, simply observed the BIOS, what it did, how it interacted with the hardware of the machine, and then they wrote their own BIOS from scratch, which did the same thing. Without having to copy any code, actually see what was inside the BIOS, they just copied its behavior, which was perfectly legal. And Compaq were able to pull it off, make a compatible and legal BIOS, and that's what made their first computer and the first 100% IBM compatible computer possible. And so in 1983, the Compaq Portable was launched, and it was wildly successful. People just ate it up because everybody loved it. It was a portable, near 100% IBM compatible computer, and there was just so much about it to love, aside from, its portable form factor. At a price of $4,000, it was quite affordable. That was about the same price as a base model PC XT, and it had more video capabilities than a PC or a PC XT. It supported both the monochrome display adapter, or MDA graphics, and the color graphics adapter, or CGA graphics. Both of IBM's graphics standard. You could normally only get an IBM PC with one. The Compaq Portable supported both, which was just absolutely amazing. And so it sold like wildfire, and IBM did not appreciate this at all. They didn't appreciate the fact that somebody had gone and made a compatible computer and they couldn't be sued because it was totally legal. And now other companies were picking up on what Compaq did and starting to make their own IBM compatibles, which were cheaper and more capable and everything else, and IBM was not happy with this at all. And that is where just about everything started. Basically, from there, IBM saw the Compaq Portable, saw how popular it was, how capable it was, and IBM decided they wanted to try and steal some of that fire. With all the advantages that the Compaq Portable had, IBM still had one major advantage from a marketing standpoint, and that was the IBM name. People trusted IBM. They were a major corporation, a very old corporation, and just at the forefront of computing history and the present computing of the day. And so IBM decided that they would try their hand at introducing their own portable computer to compete with the Compaq Portable, and maybe they could steal some of that thunder and make some money off of what the Compaq Portable started. And so in 1984, IBM introduced this machine, the Model 5155 Portable Personal Computer. So this computer came out in February of 1984, a few months after the Compaq Portable, What did you get with this computer compared to the Compaq Portable? Well, this computer cost a couple $100 more than the Compaq Portable. Base price was $4,200. What you got was something built far better than the Compaq Portable. First of all, this is made of the same very hard plastic that all early IBM products were made of. You know, well, I think actually the PC had a metal case actually, but I believe the outside was plastic. The IBM Model M keyboard, everybody's familiar with. Those are incredibly tough. Same type of plastic as this. Incredibly solid. There's no buckling anywhere. Not even on the large surfaces like this. Very thick, tough plastic, just like IBM used on a lot of stuff. You got durability, that's for sure. And durability is very important in a portable computer because, of course, these things were carried from place to place and they would get banged up and stuff, and it was important that they could stand up to that abuse without breaking. Second thing you got, compared to the Compaq Portable, was a much better keyboard. Now take a look at this keyboard. Now take a listen to this keyboard. This is nothing more than an IBM Model F keyboard physically modified for this computer. It's a slightly physically different version of the standard IBM Model F keyboard that you could get with the PC and the PC XT. It's been modified. Some of the keys have been rearranged and some of the keys have been shrunk so that the keyboard fits a smaller footprint. But otherwise, mechanically, and electrically, it's a standard Model F keyboard. And this is just a renowned keyboard for the quality of its typing. It's just as renowned as the Model M. In fact, some people say this is better than the Model M, because where the Model M has standard buckling spring key switches, this has the capacitive buckling spring key switches, which give a slightly different feel and a slightly different sound. But most of all, the capacitive buckling spring switches are way more durable, because how a capacitive buckling spring switch works is there's never any actual contact between the switching elements. It's just a capacitive field, and when you press down on the key, it brings the plates of the capacitor closer together but not touching, and that change in capacitance creates the change in voltage, which registers as a key press. And that's what this has that the Model M doesn't, and that makes this more durable. In fact, I believe I read somewhere that I think a Model F is officially rated for 1 million key presses per key. I think something really crazy like that. So yeah, they never wear out. It's impossible to wear these out. Feasibly impossible anyway. So yeah, you got a renowned keyboard. The Compaq had a standard, I don't even know if it was rubber dome, but it wasn't a mechanical key switch, it was something. And the keyboard is a huge weak point of the Compaq Portable, especially today. And the reason for that is they have a severe age-related issue. The Compaq Portable's keyboard had a layer of foam under it, and I think that's what the keys use to, you know, as a spring action to spring back up when you press the key, is a layer of foam underneath them, and that foam degrades with time, and every Compaq Portable now has a non-functional keyboard because of that degraded foam. So when you get a Compaq Portable today, you have to take apart the keyboard and replace the foam in order to make the keyboard functional again. So definitely today, this keyboard has far stood the test of time, far better than the Compaq Portable's keyboard. But even at the time when the Compaq Portable didn't have that issue, this just had a far better keyboard because it was a Model F keyboard with mechanical key switches, and it was just a far nicer keyboard. So this had definitely had that advantage over the Compaq Portable. Other comparisons between the two, this has CGA graphics only. So the Compaq does have the edge with graphics capabilities, because with the Compaq you got both CGA and MDA. But I think the biggest advantage this had over the Compaq Portable at the time was 100% IBM software compatibility, of course. I've talked about the Compaq Portable being what I say near 100% IBM compatible, and the reason I say near is because some early IBM software programs would actually they would actually make use of the IBM BASIC that's in IBM's BIOS. One of the features of these early IBM computers is they actually have BASIC in the BIOS, and so if you don't boot up into an operating system, it boots up into BASIC instead. So BASIC is stored right in the ROM of the computer. And some software programs, even though they don't need to, they actually reference the BIOS to use bits and pieces of BASIC as part of the code for the software program to run, even if the program isn't itself BASIC based. And Compaq couldn't put BASIC in the portable's BIOS because it was an IBM component. There was no way they could reverse engineer it and stick it in their own BIOS. And so it lacked BASIC, and so those few IBM programs that looked for BASIC in the BIOS to work, they wouldn't work on the Compaq Portable. However, because the Compaq Portable was so successful, the publishers of these software programs very quickly patched them all up so that they could run without IBM's BASIC in the BIOS. And so eventually the Compaq Portable, like all IBM compatible machines, did become 100% compatible, so that really wasn't an issue anymore. But indeed, in the early days, one advantage you got with this machine was 100% software compatibility, because it has BASIC in the BIOS. Related to that is that this computer is definitely easier to upgrade and easier to maintain than the Compaq Portable. And the reason for this is very, very cool, and is one of the cool aspects of this computer. This machine is nothing more than an IBM PC XT slammed into a portable case. The motherboard inside this thing is the regular old PC XT motherboard. No modifications, no nothing. Inside this computer is an ordinary PC XT motherboard, and that's wonderful. That's especially wonderful from a collector's standpoint today, because if something catastrophic happens and your motherboard's dead, you can just grab any old PC XT motherboard and put it in here and it'll work. It's just a standard XT case for the most part and a standard XT motherboard, and it's the exact same motherboard as an IBM PC XT. Functionally, this is nothing more than an IBM PC XT. And so that was another big advantage that this had over the Compaq Portable, which was based on, custom hardware. So that's a really cool aspect about this computer, and we will open this computer up in this video and take a look at the motherboard and all the other hardware that's inside it. So that's pretty much it as far as a comparison between this machine and the Compaq Portable. So basically, to summarize, this machine had better compatibility from the get-go, and it was more durable, and today, 35 years later, it's definitely stood the test of time better than the Compaq Portable, and it's easier to maintain and repair than the Compaq Portable. However, the Compaq Portable was a bit more capable because it had both the MDA and CGA graphics modes. Oh, something else I forgot to mention with this computer, it did come with twice the amount of RAM as the Compaq Portable. This computer comes with 256 kilobytes of RAM standard. And unfortunately, one of the weird things about the IBM PC XT is that IBM actually revised the motherboard halfway through production. Early IBM PC XTs could have up to 256 kilobytes of RAM, and later versions had a revised motherboard which could take up to 640 kilobytes of RAM, the standard 640K that we all know today. And unfortunately, this computer shipped with the early version of the XT motherboard, so you can only put up to 256 kilobytes of RAM on the motherboard. If you want any more, you have to get an expansion card. You could buy an expansion card that you could put memory chips into, and that would upgrade your RAM up to and including the standard full 640K. But this machine did, in its base configuration, or its only configuration actually, come with twice as much RAM as the Compaq Portable, so that was one advantage of this machine. So from a collector standpoint today, the Compaq Portable is definitely more common to find than this computer. It sold way more units. But they generally need more work done to them to make them functional than this IBM unit does. It's very easy to come across this unit and it worked just perfectly fine, just like when I found this one. It worked just perfectly fine when I first got it. But I would say they both have their loyal followers. You don't really find any people who in particular like the IBMs more than the Compaqs, or like the Compaqs more than the IBMs. That's probably mostly because people will just take what they get. If they get a Compaq, they'll care for it and use it. And if they get an IBM, they'll care for it and use it. But definitely, if you run across an IBM, you're definitely in for an easier time in getting it running and keeping it running. It's just far more durable computer. It has stood the test of time better than the Compaq, and it's easier to keep running into the future. So finally, let's take a look at this computer. Of course, you've already seen the keyboard, this awesome modified IBM Model F keyboard. Just a joy to type on, although unfortunately some of the modifications done to make it smaller have resulted in kind of an inconvenient typing experience sometimes. They've shrunken some of the keys. They shrunk the left shift key, and oh, I hate that so much. I am forever missing it and hitting the backslash key instead. When I'm typing, I want to hit shift, and my pinky just hits this key instead, and it really sucks. It takes so much practice to get used to being able to hit this key. That's the only really big annoyance there, really. I don't use the right shift key, but it's been shrunken as well. Your enter key's small, but that's alright. Backspace has been shrunken, but that's also not bad. But that left shift key, I tell you, that gets me every time, unfortunately. So there's the rest of the keys. The keycaps are not removable. I forget. I don't think they were on the normal Model F. Right here, this cable does pull out because this keyboard can be detached from the computer. We have a little spring-loaded terminal there, or a hinge I should say. It is a hinge. The keyboard pivots on this hinge because when the computer's not in use, you can put it up and button it up just like that. There's a little spring-loaded thing here and one here, and it's a two-handed job. We can snap the keyboard in just like that, and the computer is ready for storage or travel. And when you're storing it, you can actually stand it up, and it stands up on top of this surface. So the computer actually stands on top of the keyboard. So that keyboard's been built really tough, solid plastic. And here's the hinges you can see, and they're spring-loaded, and that's how you can actually detach the keyboard to move it farther away from the computer. And it also serves as little feet. When the keyboard is detached, you can tilt these down to prop up the back of the keyboard a bit, which is nice. So I'll lower the keyboard, and now I will detach the keyboard. And there you go, there's your detached keyboard. And take a look at this. Here's a bit of an oddity. It connects not with a standard XT keyboard adapter, but it's got this little modular jack, which is a bit weird. And that would have been done, of course, for space-saving reasons. A 5-pin DIN connector would stick out way too far to be feasible for use with this design, so they've just used a modular jack here. It's got 6 contacts on it actually. Huh, that's kind of weird. I think it only actually has 4 or 5 wires inside the jack from what I can see. So electrically it is just a standard XT keyboard. It's just been modified for this jack. So if you somehow get a hold of one of these keyboards and you wanted to modify it to use with a standard XT computer, you could simply cut this off and wire it onto a 5-pin jack, no problem. Likewise, if you had the computer but with no keyboard, you could modify something, any XT keyboard, to just plug into that jack. Something else is this keyboard lacks the status LEDs for number lock, caps lock, and scroll lock. I believe the normal model I've had those, but this one doesn't, to save space. And there you can see the IBM Portable Personal Computer badge, same badge that's up on the case right there. Very nice metal badge. So that's a look at the keyboard. So we can just slot it back onto the case there, just like that. Now let's take a look at this display. This display is pretty darn cool. This is an 8-inch, I believe, CRT display. And it's an amber display. It's got an amber phosphor. And as you can see, the display turned off here has a bit of a dark orange tint to it. And that's actually an anti-glare coating. And yeah, it's a very nice display. Overall, it does have one minor issue, which I'll get into later in the video, but overall it's a very nice display. From a technological standpoint, this display is pretty interesting because it's basically, functionally, nothing more than a black and white television. This display is fed via a composite signal, an ordinary composite signal, from the video card through an internal connector, and I'll show that when we look inside the computer. Moving right along here, we have brightness and contrast controls for the monitor, and here's where your floppy disk drives or any 5¼ inch drives would go. And as you can see, mine's kind of ugly. It's got a big gaping hole in the bottom there. I did get this machine with 2 floppy drives, but sadly the bottom drive went bad a couple of months later. I don't know what happened, but it just totally stopped working, and I cleaned the heads and that didn't help. And I tried so long, and I asked on computer forums if there was anything that could be done, and nobody could really help me. And yeah, the bottom drive, it just stopped working. It stopped reading and writing disks correctly. It could only read and write on one side of a disk. So it could have been a misalignment thing, but I had no way to align the head. So I just removed the drive, and as you can see, I've got something sticking in there. A big modification which I've done to this computer, and it's quite convenient because I can just reach through here and pull it out whenever I need to, which I do need to sometimes. So the first floppy drive is still working, luckily, and it is the original IBM drive. The drive was made by a manufacturer called QME. At least I assume that's how it's pronounced. It's QUME, and they were the primary supplier of floppy drives for the IBM PC and IBM's other early machines. So yeah, this drive's still working, luckily. The bottom drive was actually a TIAC drive, and I don't know if that would have been like a replacement drive, like there was originally an IBM branded drive there and it went bad and it was replaced with the TIAC, or maybe this machine was actually ordered with just the one floppy drive at first. You could order these with just one floppy drive. It was very uncommon because lots of, floppy disk based software, you needed 2 drives simultaneously to use the software, but it was possible to order these with just one drive. So that could have been the case with this unit. But yeah, it's too bad I don't have both the drives there anymore. So that's pretty much what there is to show on the front of the computer here. There's a little bit of a trim piece missing right there. It was there when I got the computer. It fell off later. I did find it when it fell off. And I was gonna epoxy it back on, but then I lost the piece. I don't know if I have it stored somewhere and I've forgotten where it was, or if it just got lost forever and I'm never gonna find it again. But it's no big deal regardless. Let's take a look around the back of the computer. So, looking at the back of the machine, here's the handle to carry it with. It's a very solid, tough metal handle, which is really nice. And you need it because this thing's really heavy. This thing weighs about 30 pounds. It really is a monster to lug around, and it's kind of, some people today kind of laugh that they called this a portable computer, but it really was for the time. It was portable because you could you know, because a normal healthy person could carry it around and it had the handle on it for the means to carry it around, that was enough to classify it as portable. With that in mind, I should say there's no way this thing runs only on 120 volt or 240 volt mains power. There's no way to run this off a battery. It just plugs into the wall like an ordinary computer. But because it could be carried from place to place easily, that's why they classified it as portable. Put the handle back up there. Now behind this hatch is all the ports and everything else. There you go. So take a look at that power switch. That's just standard power switch used on a lot of early IBM machines, and it is very cool, very solid switch. There's your standard IEC power input, and this is a dual voltage computer, so you could use it anywhere in the world, which is nice. The power supply, I don't think this computer uses the normal IBM PC or PC-XT power supply. I think it's a proprietary power supply, but I think internally it's the same as any old XT power supply. So you might be in for a bit of a pickle if you got one of these with a bad power supply, but I think you'd be able to modify one to fit it in there and work normally. So not a huge issue, but luckily this one's still working just fine. And luckily the main filtering capacitor hasn't blown to smithereens yet. I don't look forward to the day if and when that happens. Let's take a look at this info sticker here. Manufactured by IBM, Armonk, New York, model 5155. Now, this computer may have been the victim of poor marketing by IBM. Now, as I said, this didn't sell very many units. In fact, there's no concrete information of how many units this computer sold, but one source I've looked at says that IBM sold about 10,000 of these, which is nothing. Nothing compared to the Compaq portable or compared to the IBM PC or the PC-XT. So it's by that metric that I say that this computer may very well could be considered rare. It sold very few units in relative terms, and a lot of people say that the reason for that was because of a very big mistake made by IBM in how they marketed this computer. They gave this the model number 5155, which is in between 5150, the original PC, and 5160, the PC-XT, and likewise they called this the portable PC, not the portable PC-XT, despite the fact that internally this computer is a PC-XT. And so it's theorized today that the reason this sold not many units was because people thought that this was just the old 5150 PC inside here rather than the newer, more capable PC-XT, and so people didn't want to spend the money on a crippled computer. But in reality, it was based on the PC-XT. And so IBM should have called it the portable PC-XT and perhaps given it the model number 5165. So that was probably a big mistake made by IBM. I did read one account, though, that said that maybe they didn't use the XT name because of the design of the case and the cramped space of the case. Not all of the expansion slots on the XT motherboard are usable in this computer. So by that metric, maybe IBM was just covering their butts by not calling it an XT, so people wouldn't buy one thinking they had more expansion slots available than it actually does. There's the rest of the info there. And here's your expansion slots. So right there, we have a parallel port. There's a port for an external floppy drive. Here's our video card. I have more to talk about with this video card later when we get inside the computer. And you can see the video card has not only a CGA connector, so you can hook up an external CGA monitor, which is very nice. So if you wanted, say, color or just a bigger, nicer to look at display, you could do that with this computer, so you wouldn't be limited to the small monochrome internal display. But you also have a composite video output, so you could hook this up to a television set for an external monitor, which is also very nice. It's just a standard IBM color graphics adapter. We'll see that when we look inside the computer. And here we have a 25-pin serial port, but you can see I actually bought this 9-pin serial port adapter off eBay, and it just plugs right in there, and luckily it's small enough that I can actually keep it there permanently and it doesn't get in the way of the cover or anything. There's maybe 1/8 of an inch of clearance, which is just enough. But it's very nice that I've been able to do this because I can use this with a standard serial mouse with the right software, which is awesome, and I do use this thing with a mouse. So very good. And yeah, that is pretty much the back of this thing. So how about we open it up? That's the next thing we'll do. We'll open up this computer. I'll show you everything that's inside, what it all looks like, and I'll talk about the upgrades and modifications that I've done to this machine in the time that I've owned it. Watch your toes.